I want to talk a little bit more about the raising capital for Zynga now. So Zynga received most of its investment from pretty much top tier investors in the Valley, and also some international top tier investors like SoftBank, right? So for Series B, you had lead investors that were Craner Perkins, Google, and SoftBank. Um, why is it so important to raise capital from these three top tier VCs? You think?
Well, actually, I think we raised from Google, not their venture arm at the time, but actually the corporate entity, Google.
Oh, so
And it
from
was
their balance sheet.
right, yeah, yeah. And I think it was maybe even before Google had a venture fund. It was
Wow.
around this that happened. And then with Kleiner, it was all about the partner. Like we were working with Bing Gordon, who was one of the earliest employees at Electronic Arts, and
Okay.
he was hugely instrumental at Zynga for helping us, learn how to become a real games company. And so it was all about the who you're working with, right?
Right.
And with SoftBank, it was, this is way before the Vision Fund days. It was a joint venture to go and figure out if we could go up against the giants of Japan with GRI and DNA, and work with SoftBank to help us to make that happen. And so all of them were sort of very strategic. Actually, even with the Google
Mm.
investment, Google was launching their own social network at that time called Google Plus, and
Oh.
as part of that investment, we were releasing games on the Google Plus. So, in every case, there it's just like super strategic. It's all about the people you're taking money from are all adding value in some way beyond the capital.
Right, right. And I assume also SoftBank, because you raised money from SoftBank, you were kind of close with them. And when you were coming to Japan, they were the one that helped you come into Japan, right?
Yeah, and it was a very interesting time to come into Japan because SoftBank was just releasing the iPhone, and so
Mm.
the whole idea there was that we knew we were coming into the world of garake in Japan. There's the Galapagos Keitai phones, and this ecosystem was already very competitive with games and very big, and we knew that to win in that ecosystem would be very difficult because these players, the companies, were very established. But we knew that smartphone was coming, and so we thought we had a chance to invest in that future of smartphones. And because SoftBank was the first company bringing a smartphone to market with the iPhone, they were starting the new wave that was going to take over Japan. And so that's why we partnered with them. It was to invest in the future of what we thought was coming. And it was ended up being like a really interesting transition to see happen. Like I feel lucky that I was in Japan during that period where I got to see how amazing the
Right.
sort of Keitai ecosystem was, and then to see what it looked like to see smartphones just starting to grow. It was a very interesting time to be here.
Right, right. And so you receive, capital from not just those tier VCs, but also other bunch of top tier VCs. Like also, I think Andreessen Horowitz invested in you guys, and like you mentioned last time, Peter Thiel and I think Reid Hoffman were also angel investors in Zynga in the very, very early days. What would you say is the like a really good effects or great things about receiving capital from those known top tier people? Some would say, it makes you look legit, or it makes you, easier to raise capital in the later round, or, you can kind of, how to say, get advantage of the network of those investors. What would you say is, the really good things that you can have from those people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this seem like such a long time ago that I make myself seem older than I am. But it was a lot of those people you described, like Reid Hoffman,
Mm.
Peter Thiel. You didn't mention, but like Fred Wilson and the sort of early investors from Union Square.
Oh.
These are the people who were very early investing in social networks. So
Mm.
Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman with LinkedIn, and all these investments. Even Fred Wilson with Twitter. Like the reason we ended up partnering with these people is because they understood what we were trying to do. Because
Right.
Zynga wasn't really a games company. It was like this new type of company that was about kind of like part social networking, part games, and you had to understand both. And so everybody in that group, they just understood what we were doing before other people really did. They're the same group of investors that were investing in these social networks when they were still small and seeing the future in them. they were investing in us. And so, yeah, I mean, today they're all like, even more famous than they were then. But what I would say is like, they predicted this wave right in a huge way. And for us, it just meant that we could communicate with people that understood what we were trying to do and why it mattered back when that wasn't a common sort of understanding for people.
Right, right. So it wasn't really like a store chasing, like getting just best investors in the valley, or more of they're the one that actually understood about what's next big thing, which was Zynga. I see. Interesting. And you mentioned about Union Square Ventures, but for Series A, you received money from Union Square Ventures, and I assume you received capital another time again, I guess. What would you say was like the deciding factor to choose to work with them? What was the value that they provided to you?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that was decided, exclusively by me, but like I can just say that, you know, like these investors, I mean, they are from my sort of my last answer, like they just
Mm-hmm.
understand social networks very, very deeply. And so like if we had investors that were from more traditional game companies, they probably would have um, they would have misunderstood our story actually, like early on when we were building on these social networks. And instead we had people who were very interested in Fred Wilson just totally understanding the dynamics of social networks and what we were trying to achieve. So it was like just they were all just really great partners that we could work with to go after the mission.